You probably remember the old sitcom Home Improvement.
Oh, yeah.
With Tim the Toolman Taylor. So here we are. We're talking home improvement. We're talking maybe some tools to help us in our marriages and in our families.
And it's you and me, babe, whatever comes. Knowing bigger hands are holding ours, and the greatest days are ahead of us. Growing in love, learning to be a better us.
Welcome to A Better Us. We're glad you're here.
We love spending time with you, and I know that you love spending time in the workshop because that's the place where just the guys of A Better Us go and talk openly and candidly about guy stuff.
Yeah, and today's topic is especially thought-provoking. What does it mean to be a real man?
Good question.
Dr. Mike is on the beach giving us some insights from a clinical psychologist perspective. And then the guys in the workshop have a few thoughts of our own.
Okay, and then in today's Loveology segment, author Ted Cunningham shares a great tip on becoming a better listener. I hope you're listening.
I will be listening.
Good.
And so will our kitchen couples as they share listening lessons from their own lives.
All that's coming up, so let's get started.
Steve was a professional athlete who made an appointment to see me at my clinical office. So I walk out into the waiting room to meet Steve. I'd never seen him before, and he is like the personification of a real man, right? I mean, the dude was enormous, like 6'5". His hand like enveloped my hand. It felt like a baby hand when I shook his hand. And I thought to myself when I took him back to the office, wow, Steve is the kind of guy that almost everybody I know would say, this guy has got it all. He had the cars and the houses and the beautiful wife and the awesome kids and the professional sort of athlete responsibilities and privileges that come along with being who he was. By all accounts, Steve was the man, and everybody thought so. But I'll never forget the moment in my clinical office, several sessions into our counseling, where Steve had his hands in his face, just crying like a little baby. And he kept repeating these words. I'll never forget them. He said, Dr. Mike, I'm a failure. I'm a failure as a man. I'm a failure as a man. The guy who had it all felt like a failure as a man. And as a matter of fact, as time went on, I recognized Steve didn't even have the skill set inside of his heart and his mind to know how to be a God-honoring man. Now, here's the good news. God has a very clear and powerful understanding of manhood, and he knows what it means to be a man. The Apostle Paul talks about it very clearly in Ephesians chapter 5. I'm not going to read the entire chapter to you, but I'm going to highlight two parts of that chapter that are incredibly important. The Apostle Paul says that our job as husbands is to be the head of our wife, just as Christ is the head of the church. And then later on, he says, men, husbands, you need to love your wife just like Christ loved the church, so much so that you lay yourself down for her. So our job, based on the Apostle Paul's words, is number one, to be a leader, to be a head, and then number two, to be a lover, to love our wives. Let's unpack that a little bit. What do you do if you want to be a head to your wife? Well, that word head that the Apostle Paul uses is actually similar to words in the scripture that used to describe the head of a river or the headwaters of a great river. I think of the headwaters of the Everglades. It's Shingle Creek. I rode across the street the other day. It said, you're now passing the headwaters of the Florida Everglades. And it was literally like 15 feet wide. And I thought to myself, man, Shingle Creek feeds everything that happens in the Everglades, that incredible ecosystem, everything that grows and is nourished is sustained by the water, the sustenance of the headwaters of Shingle Creek. That means that our job as a head is to be the source of everything that grows in the life of your wife, in the life of your kids and your family. You're supposed to be a catalyst for their growth and their development. The second thing you need to do if you want to be a real man is you've got to love radically. So much so that you lay yourself down for your wife. That's what the Apostle Paul says. He says, love her the way Christ loved the church, so much so that you lay yourself down for her. So what that means is, it's not about you. It's not about your thoughts, your needs, your wants, your desires. You can't make this relationship about you getting what you want from your wife. This relationship has to be about you loving your wife so intensely that you're willing to surrender everything to see her grow. That is what we need to strive to do, because that is what it looks like to be a real man.
Well, hey, welcome to the workshop. And I'm here with the guys of A Better Us, Eric Maines, we got Mike Pinball Clements, and Dan McCauley. And guys, you probably remember the old sitcom Home Improvement.
Oh, yeah.
With Tim the Toolman Taylor. So here we are. We're talking home improvement. We're talking maybe some tools to help us in our marriages and in our families. By the way, what was it with that Wilson guy on Home Improvement? You only saw this much of his face. He always was behind the fence.
But he was taller than the fence, so he was just kind of showing, oh, I can look over your backyard.
You
I think if Eric stood at that fence, you'd be like,
Yeah.
Tim the Two-Man Taylor would just build a higher fence.
Yeah.
He's like, I got tall neighbors, I get a bigger fence.
I'd be jumping.
Well, with home improvement, you know, we all want to become a better us, and that's what we always talk about on this program. Mm-hmm. And there's different ways we can learn to do that, and different tools that we can have. And hopefully you use A Better Us as kind of a tool to watch and to view and to, you know what, I like to look at YouTube videos when I have a project and it's something I haven't quite done before. So I go on YouTube and I can find out, you know, what tools I need, how you build this or how you fix that. And so we do have a lot of tools like that on our Better Us YouTube channel you can check out too.
Oh, I see where you
you see where I was going with that? Okay, a little shameless plug there for our YouTube channel.
That's good.
But we just watched Dr. Mike there on the beach, and some good stuff about being a real man. And what does it really mean to be a leader? You know, that can be a term that has, you know, people have a lot of different ideas of what that means. But he had some good points there. And so what are some thoughts about what Dr. Mike had to say about being a real man in the home?
Yeah, be a real man. One thing that I've had to learn in my own marriage is to be a man of my word. You know, men with good intentions, they make promises. But men with good character, they keep promises. And so, and I feel like God has modeled that very well for us. God makes promises and he keeps promises. And that's something that I've been working on. I say, you know what, Kara, I'm going to make sure that I take the garbage out when it needs to be done. I'm going to clean the cars. Like those are going to be my responsibilities. And then in the past, they've slipped through, and then the cars are just disgusting, and the garbage is piling up, and I'm like, why isn't this getting done? Just like, right, this is my responsibility. I made that promise, and I need to keep my promise. I want to be a husband of good character. Yeah. I want to be a real man in that way, and so that's something that I need to work on, and we're in the workshop to work on things today. So
yeah, and when you have small kids like you do, it is hard to keep the car pretty clean. You know, when they're throwing food around.
Like the Happy Meal, it gets dumped, and then all right, let's see what we got.
man.
It's fun.
But that's good. Like, the whole Promise Keeper idea is a big one in really showing leadership.
I was thinking about it with, I mean, it sounded like an immense responsibility and weight to be the source, like the headwater, the source for all this life to your family. And I was thinking about it, and the truth is, as strong as we may be, we don't have that within us. We don't have that source in and of ourselves. And so there's a key there, I think, in not trying to be so strong and be something that you're not, but being smart about it. You know, sometimes my wife will ask me to do something because she thinks it requires my physical strength as a male to do it, when really it's just about being smart about it. I don't think it was this thing, but just the kind of thing as an example. can you take this lid off this thing, honey? Because she thinks it needs my physical strength, but what it needs is you need to, press down because there's a child lock. So it's about being smart about it, not that I needed to have physical strength. And I think as men, sometimes we think we have to be so strong and we have to sustain our family and carry it. And sometimes the thing we need to do is realize that we don't have strength within ourselves and to tie into the one that does. It's James, I believe it's 4:10 that says to humble ourselves and admit our need for him, and then he will come and lift us up. So this giant saw behind me has the ability to like cut your arm off before you even realize it's gone, right? But unless it's plugged into the source, it has no power. And we are like that as men. We can be powerful, but if we're not plugged into the right source, if we're not tapped into the ultimate source, we need to be smart about it, not try and just muscle our way through it in our own strength, but be smart about it and tie into the real source.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, you've given all the meat, so I maybe just like to follow up to say this, that we often talk about trying to define a man, right? And what the man should do and what the man should be, and they describe very simply from Ephesians 5 that it really is about leadership and love, right? And those I think can be one. It's leading with love, right? And so as I think about this, being in the workshop, of course, right? I really think of not defining but refining. We want to describe what that man does, but that man it shouldn't be the same through the course of time, right? It is a growth process.
Right.
This is what I am now, and it's the best of who I can be right now as I understand it, right? But I am to work like a workshop, right? Like picking up a hammer, I am to work through to get better and to grow so that I can be an even greater source to my family. So this is much less about defining a man, right, and who a man is, as it is each of us independently growing and understanding that our unique situation may have us do things that it might have me do something that Eric is not doing, right? It may have you doing something that I don't do, right? So it is our own independent challenge to provide for our family in its own unique way.
That's good. I think a lot of men, husbands, they see their role and they think of a term leader in probably the wrong way, the different way that Dr. Mike was describing and that the Apostle Paul does in Ephesians 5. They see it as being like you got to be the dominating dictator in the home. Yeah, I get the comfy chair and the remote control, and I'm the one in charge, and that's kind of the mindset. But the Apostle Paul and even Jesus himself, he kind of turned the leadership upside down and started thinking, you know what? Jesus said, if you want to be the greatest, you got to be the least. If you want to, be the great one, be the servant of all. And that he kind of, flipped leadership on its head, and that's it's a powerful thing. And the Apostle Paul too, love your wives as Christ loved the church. That's all in. That's total sacrificial. Jesus gave his all, and that's the kind of love that he wants us to have in the home, and so it's a huge shift in the mindset of the typical world out there when you think of leadership.
Sounds like wisdom.
It is.
Sounds a lot like wisdom.
It's something we need to work on. And Dr. Mike told the story of Steve that he saw in his counseling office, and sometimes, let me put it this way. I'm a handyman of sorts. I can do a few things, but I know my limitations.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know when I need to call in the professional. Right. And if it's a plumbing thing, it says, I've tried some things, I've made some messes. Yes. But sometimes you need to call in a professional, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you're doing a thing around the house. There's no shame in calling in the guys that really know what they're doing. And so even like whether it's like a Dr. Mike or someone. professional counseling is a great option if you think, you know what, I'm just out of whack here. Like, you feel like Steve that he talked about.
And there's no shame in that.
No
There's
shame
wisdom.
in that.
There's no shame in you calling a plumber, because who expects
No.
you to know how to do the complicated plumbing thing?
Absolutely.
You're not. No one expects that from you. So there's no shame in someone not knowing what to do with this situation in their life that needs some outside help in.
In fact, it could be like guys being a hero by going out and getting the help you need.
There it is.
Yes.
So there
In
you
fact,
go.
It might be your wife might be in the background going, "I wish he would just call a plumber. I wish he would just call
Most of
the
the time.
plumber."
Every relationship needs a little plumbing.
Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't, and
Right.
you need a little help.
Yeah. We all want to become a better us. And so I hope you enjoyed the discussion here in the workshop. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Stay with us. More better us to come.
As women, if this happens, and this has happened with us, we get so caught up in the emotion of the moment that then we put up walls. We think, well,
we do.
you don't even want to listen to me, so okay, then I'm not going to talk to you. And then that causes like a, friction when all you wanted to do was just be heard. Hey friends, Ron and Ann here. We're so glad you're with us at A Better Us, and we pray your marriage is blessed as you take this in.
Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and enjoy this video.
So this is something that is so germane to all of us. How can I be a better listener with my spouse? Most of us are pretty proficient at expressing ourselves, but hearing and listening, that's a different story. What are your tips on that, Ted?
It's my favorite Old Testament term, incline the ear. Amy years ago told me when I asked, scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing as a listener? She said 5. I'm like, why don't I give you some time to think about it? I don't need an answer right away. And she said a 5, but because my wife is great at bailing me out, she said, you move from a 5 to an 8 when we have your undivided attention. When you are leaning in, which is what incline the ear means, when you're leaning in and fully engaged, I'd give you an 8 or a 9. And I love that term, incline the ear. God uses it to his children. He says, hey, incline your ear. You're being stubborn. Listen to what I have to say. Proverbs uses incline the ear, to the dad who's sitting on the edge of his son's bed. Hey, I'm going to share some wisdom, some instruction with you. I need you to incline your ear to this. And then the lament psalmist uses it to say to God, hey, I'm hurting. The enemy is winning, and I don't think you're listening. Would you incline your ear to me? And so if you want to be a better listener in marriage, it's more about understanding than being understood. So just lean in, tilt your head a little bit, and show that you are fully engaged in the conversation. Just that nonverbal alone is going to take you up from wherever you're at right now as a listener. It's going to bump you up a couple of points.
I love it, Ted. So if you are feeling like you're not a great listener, this is something anybody can do. You don't have to get a PhD. You don't have to get trained in it. Just incline your ear to your spouse. I love that.
It's the same thing we do when we step up in a conversation. Step into it. Don't relax backing out of it.
Right. So valuable. Thanks so much, Ted.
Well, good to have you here around the kitchen island with our kitchen couples. Here we are.
We have Mike and Diane, of course, and Eric and Kara. And it is so great to be back in the kitchen, especially to have you with us in the kitchen too.
Yeah, and there was a great topic kickoff there with Dr. Les Parrott, with Pastor Ted Cunningham about what can I do to be a better listener. Great topic.
I think we all could be better listeners when you think about it. And you know what I love about these?
I don't want you to rate me from 1 to 10.
Well, okay, we won't go there. We'll talk later, dear. But no, what I like about these is they're conversation starters, because it's just one question. But really, when you think about it, it's about communication in marriage. And how can I let you know that what you're saying to me in the moment is important, and I put value in what you're saying.
And I'm going to make a confession. I've got a bad habit that sometimes, because I have something on my mind and I'm just kind of heading somewhere, Anne starts talking to me.
I know what you're going to say.
And and I start actually backing away while she's
Backing
talking.
out
and,
of the room.
And my mind's over what I was thinking about, what I was going to do,
Are you
and I'm
going
backing
somewhere?
away.
Like this is, you know,
And-
we're talking
And so
here.
sometimes I catch myself, but sometimes she'll just help me and say, "Where are you going?"
Exactly. I know. Because really, I mean, we've all got lots on our mind. We've all got lots on our plate, and it's easy, especially with the person you're most comfortable with, to kind of let the guard down and say, "Okay, I got other things to do. I'm sorry," and to walk away.
And that's the opposite of leaning in that he was talking about there.
Yeah,
that-
but you guys don't struggle with that, obviously.
No, we don't. No, we don't. I do. Yes. So, let's get this clear. We don't. We don't. We don't. I do. So so I'll get started. So yeah, that whole idea of leaning in, right, is so fundamentally important. And if we can add to lean in, right, if we could actually touch. Right? If you can lean in and touch, right? And then there's something else I learned early on is to try to repeat what she says. Right? If you by repeating what she said, now you're saying I'm listening. I hear you, right? And that LTR, lean in, touch, and repeat, kind of short for letter. Now, if you really need a little bit of, you kind of didn't get it right, and you want to kind of make up a little bit, a handwritten letter is a wonderful thing to do. To just and not the solution. No, we all we need to do is just repeat. I believe this is what you said to me, right? And if you go through that and write that down in a letter form, it says that I'm listening and it's important to me.
It really validates to your partner, oh, he actually heard me, right? Because he's repeated everything I've said, so now there's no excuse. And the other thing that I say often, and I love to say, is when you're listening, listen with the intent to understand, not to respond. Because when you're listening to understand, your mind's not going like this of, oh, what's my comeback? What am I going to say, right? You're actually paying attention to your partner.
That's good.
I like that.
That's good.
Really good. That's really good.
I think so. For our generation, I think.
Are you calling us old?
So not to separate, not to actually draw the line, but there is a line. But for our generation, I'll say it again. I think there needs to be a step before leaning in. I think it's and we've caught ourselves doing this. I think the step is lift your eyes and then lean in, because we've caught ourselves having full conversations while we're just kind of like, right? Just like, oh yeah, no, I was my day was fine. Yeah, no, I spoke to that and it was just on my phone.
Yeah,
so I think for my generation, it might be kind of lift your eyes and lean in.
Yeah, I like that, E. I like that.
Seriously. I remember sharing my heart to Eric, and then I look up at him, and he's on his phone watching. He didn't hear one thing I said, and I was like, wow. And then it just discourages you from sharing because you feel like they are so committed to what's on their phone more than they are to the conversation that's going on in the room. And so
And I've tried to save myself last second by because I heard like the last few syllables of what she said and be like, no, yeah, I know you said you were going on the, and she's like, you didn't hear a word. Just like, I'm sorry. But so I need to lift my eyes. I need to lean in. And be
Because then
intentional.
we get so, as women, if this happens, and this has happened with us, we get so caught up in the emotion of the moment that then we put up walls. We think, well, you don't even want to listen to me. So, okay, then I'm not going to talk to you. And then that causes like a, friction when all you wanted to do was just be heard in the moment. And so if that happens, like backing out of the room, I need to not get so offended and say, excuse me, but to say, okay, hun, I need you present right now because what I have to say is important and I really need you to hear me. And then proceed.
Sometimes it's just understanding that this conversation isn't just a quick, logistical kind of,
Communication.
Can you pick up your socks, while you're over there or something? but it's something that's okay. She's going to a heart level. I better lean into this one.
Yeah.
And I love James 1:19 in the Bible. It says, "Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." And so, God gave us the 2 ears and only one mouth, I think, for a reason.
Exactly.
If we can do twice as much listening as we do talking. But so I'm working on it, hon. I'll keep working on it. And
We all are.
We're all a work in progress.
all are.
aren't we? I know it.
Okay, well, that's good.
Maybe this got a conversation started in your home too. And make sure you lean in though when you're talking, okay, and listen.
I bet they were leaning in even to this conversation.
I hope so.
Way to go.
I hope so.
Stay with us, more to come.
Missed an episode of A Better Us? No problem. Visit abetterus.tv and click watch, where you can enjoy past episodes and even share them with your friends. Each episode is packed with practical advice to help you and your relationship become a better us. While you're there, click subscribe to receive your free weekly Marriage Moment email. Also like us on Facebook to receive program previews, news about upcoming events, and inspirational quotes. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, we've come to the end of another episode, and a highlight for me was watching you guys in the workshop talk about what it means to be the kind of man that God calls you to be.
Right. Dr. Mike gave it to us straight about what it means to be a real man, showing the Jesus kind of servant leadership in our marriage, the kind that shows radical love and puts the needs of our spouse before our own.
And what a sense of security and peace that means for a wife, knowing that he's not letting selfishness and pride dictate his actions, but rather selflessness and humility.
And then Ted Cunningham challenged us all to become better listeners, which is really another way of showing love, isn't it? That you care enough to even physically lean in to show that you're totally focused.
You know, for all of us, that's gold. It says, I'm valued and what I have to say is important.
But if we're honest, our natural inclination is to be selfish, right? We've found that as we grow in our personal relationship with Jesus, changes start to happen. We become more like him, more loving, more patient, and selfless. And every part of our lives benefits.
If that concept is new to you, or if you simply want someone to pray with you about what it is you're going through right now, you can call our 24/7 prayer line. There's a caring person waiting to answer your call.
Yeah. Or you can visit our website at abetterus.tv for lots of helpful resources for your marriage.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. And remember, with God, there is always hope to become a better us.
Hey friends, we really hope you're enjoying the marriage conversations here with A Better Us on our YouTube channel.
We have hundreds of more helpful marriage videos designed to give you hope and tools to make your marriage better.
You can see just a few options we think you might like here and here.
Enjoy! Oh, and make sure you subscribe by clicking here so you don't miss out on all the great marriage help we have coming your way soon.